What's going on in the Eastern Conference playoff race right now? With just over 30 games to go, the Sens, Blue Jackets, and Red Wings are all in, while the Lightning, Bruins, and Rangers are all out. Is this just a blip, or are we set to see a changing of the guard in the East, Cheryl?
Well, I think we're set to see a changing of the guard, and it's not going to be easy, though. I'm holding pat with the Ottawa Senators, but when you look at someone like Tampa, I think they're going to find their way back into this playoff hunt. And the reason why I say that is you look at a coach like John Cooper, you look at their plus 34 goal differential, the likes of Victor Hedman, Vasilevsky. We can go on and on with the pedigree of Point and even the playoff performances of Gensel in the past, Kucherov. So I think these guys will find a way, if they can get an uptick in their shooting percentage, to get back into the playoffs. But I'm looking straight at the Ottawa Senators. Detroit has gotten the coaching bump, and the Columbus Blue Jackets have been an unbelievable story now with Marchenko out. That's a tough loss. But when I look at the Ottawa Senators, I really like what I'm seeing here. You're looking at a group that got shut out 5 times in January, so their offensive production was not there. But they found a way to win games, 7-2-1 in their last 10, and that's what the likes of Brady Tkachuk really not finding the score sheet, as well as Drake Batherson. So you're starting to see them finding ways to win games. And it's always been about the Ottawa Senators finding ways to win, to change the momentum in a game. And of course, goaltending. Merlanen has done a magnificent job with Allmark out since December 22nd, but he's back in the swing of things. So this team has physical presence. They're going to look to score goals. They scored 6 last game against Minnesota. I think they're sticking around.
Call it a half changing of the guard, Gino, because I agree with a lot of the things that Cheryl said regarding the Ottawa Senators. This is a team that on paper and the underlying numbers suggest is a pretty good team that deserves to make the playoffs. Defensively, they come such a long way. And offensively, there's a little more under the hood than we've seen so far. So I'd be even more optimistic about the Ottawa Senators because it feels like their scoring ability is going to pop at some point here. Now, when it comes to some of the legacy teams that have been in the playoffs every single year, Tampa Bay looks like a team that should make the playoffs. They have one of the best, most explosive first lines in the NHL. They still have a strong base in net. And when everyone is healthy on the back end, that's an improved back end compared to what they had last year. Where I would be a little worried is if I was a Boston Bruins fan, because that team has a hard time scoring, hasn't necessarily defended as well, and their goaltending hasn't been to the level that you thought it was going to be. So if we're looking at, a changing of the guard, it might be Boston out, Tampa stays in, Ottawa gets in, and then who knows what happens outside of that, because, Columbus has been a great story. Not having Kirill Marchenko is going to be a huge loss for that team. He's been so good offensively. So I would call it a half changing of the guard at this point in the season.
You guys both like the Sens. If the playoffs started tonight, we get a Battle of Ontario in round 1 with the Leafs facing the Sens. This after the Leafs opened the playoffs against Tampa, then Boston over the last 3 years. How do you think the Leafs would feel about the possibility of opening the playoffs against Ottawa, Frankie?
Careful what you wish for, Gino. I know what you're trying to do here. You're trying to entice me to say that the Leafs would love to jump all over the inexperienced Ottawa Senators. Not necessarily the case. Listen, Ottawa's a good team. They're good defensively. When their goaltender is healthy, that's one of those goalies that you don't necessarily want to see in a 7-game series, but the Leafs have been there and they're trying to get over the hump. So I think for both teams, this is the way you look at it. For Toronto, listen, it's another playoff series. It doesn't matter who we're playing because we have had the quote-unquote easy route before. We lost to Columbus in the bubble and we lost to Montreal in the COVID year. It doesn't matter if it's going to be the hard path or the easy path. You just have to find a way to grind your way through it. And for the Ottawa Senators, sometimes being new on the block and just being naive to everything, you just go out and play. So regardless of whether they were going to get Tampa, Boston, Toronto, Florida, you name it, they're the new guys there. They have to prove that they can be more than just a one-hit wonder getting there and see if they can accomplish something. But, for both of these teams, I don't necessarily think they look at it and say, oh, I don't want to play this team, I don't want to play that team. You just got to get there and take care of your own business.
Yeah, when you think of the Toronto Maple Leafs, though, I think about the Boston Bruins. They might do this, and maybe the Tampa Bay Lightning. They may say, what we would like to face the Ottawa Senators. But I'm with you, Frankie. When you look at Ottawa right now, I love that they could be naive and there's a lightness, sort of that underdog theme to them. You know, they play with a ton of pace. They're a fast team. They'll push the defense back. And the likes of Brady Tkachuk, we've all been talking about it. Everyone wants to see this guy play in the playoffs. Why? Because he gets to the middle of the ice. And we know that the Toronto Maple Leafs, over the course of the last few years, they've been pushed from the paint. They're getting further and further away from the interior. So the Ottawa Senators, the likes of someone like a Brady Tkachuk, could get to the inside. And again, playing light, playing free, first time there. Sometimes it's a run-and-gun style because you think that you deserve to be there, but it's also about, you know, that naivety that you mentioned. But for the Toronto Maple Leafs, it'll be interesting. They have a tough time scoring goals in the playoffs. So it would be a big one, but I would absolutely love to see an entertaining Battle of Ontario.
I think as hockey fans, that's something we'd all like to see here in Canada.